Now, I wanted to ask you because you said you came from Panama, and in the '60s, the Black Power movement and "I'm Black and I'm Proud" was kind of just kicking up for a lot of Black Americans. Um, was it like that coming from Panama, or were you already kind of aware of your blackness, or were you just as eager as some of the brothers and sisters in New York that was just getting that information for the first time?
Well, I was aware of it at home, hanging out with my father, my grandfather, and they were Garveyites, because Marcus Garvey, he trotted all over Panama. He came to all the plantations, all the banana plantations, especially here, because my ancestry goes back to Jamaica and Barbados. So my grandparents came to Panama during the building of the Panama Canal. So they were known as the diggers. They dug up that canal with picks and shovels. A whole bunch of us got destroyed, in the mines that were planted, to blow the mountain up to create this canal up in the mountain. So, but growing up in a Garvey household with my father and seeing, what was left of the Garvey movement during my time, the bakery, he set up bakeries, he set up newspaper, he came to really let these folks know, my people on your banana plantations, you got to do better. Same like when he came to Harlem and he went to the U.S. and he went down south and met with the Klan and said, no, we stand for the same thing you stand for. We want separation. So let's shake hands and let's separate. You don't have to be carrying on with this other stuff. So yeah, there was that seed had been planted, at home. And so going to New York now, I'm like finally pretty much, got my chance to be on the front line, which is something I experienced pretty much before I left. Something happened in Panama in 1964, January 1964. If you know anything about the history of the Panama Canal, it was pretty much a stolen land. Panama was a part of Colombia, and the U.S. wanted to build the canal, and the Colombian government didn't want to allow them to build it because they wanted control of everything during the building, after the building, and a lease in perpetuity. So the government was standing for that. And so they instigated an uprising against the Colombian government for Panama to get its independence. The big stick guy, Roosevelt, blockaded the sea. The Navy couldn't come in to put it down. And they signed the lease the next day after the independence. So from 1903, the U.S. ran Panama, literally, the stretch of land 50 miles long by 10 miles wide, coast to coast from the Atlantic to the Pacific, to run, all the big value, from coast to coast in the U.S. because there was a frontier back then. You couldn't just get on a car and drive the gold from San Francisco to Wall Street during the gold rush in the 1850s. So they built the Panama Railroad. It's a shortcut. So anyway, then came the canal. My grandparents built that. And we were basically the laborers, the workforce. But during that January of 1964, there was a student uprising in Panama. The university students went to Balboa, the seat of the U.S. government in Panama, just cross the street, and you're in the U.S., literally. So we went there and put up the Panamanian flag next to the U.S. flag, because it's like, hey, this is, these folks' territory. They want their territory, and you got your flag up there. So at least let's put my flag up there as well. So the American students took the flag down, ripped it up, burnt it, and that triggered, an uprising, they call it. So we just, from our side of the street to the other side of the street, we were just throwing Molotov cocktail, destroyed the YMCA, destroyed the face of the U.S. And that's what triggered the negotiation for the canal, to return the canal to Panama. So, and my people now, being of, what they call Afro-Antillean descent, English-speaking folks from the Caribbean that came to build the canal as a labor force working with the U.S. uh, they saw the writing on the wall. So in negotiating the canal, their Panamanian government told them, well, you see these niggas y'all brought here, you got to get them out, when you return that canal, because we were the workforce. So anyway, we all got visas to Brooklyn. So that's how I went with that wave. So they got, by convenience, they got us out of here while they negotiated the deal. So at the end of the day, when the canal was returned to Panama in 2000, there was no black folks working on the canal. We were the 100% workers. So we saw it, and just getting that little taste of the revolution and being in New York and seeing it up front with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, everything on the college campus, H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, the whole deal. So I was like, yeah, this is my deal now. So it was interesting, and it still is, because again, it continues, but they have taken it to higher levels. You think you woke and you stop eating sugar, then they start serving you agave, and other things, so constantly, you're getting away from yeast, because we know yeast is not good, and we don't want alcohol and all this stuff, because it produces yeast, but yet, they give us nutritional yeast for the folks who woke. They always find a way to bring you back down into the matrix, and it's still going on today. So now, they've gone to that level, like Terminator seeds wasn't enough. Now they're growing your vaccine in the food. So they're like, okay, after the COVID, we figured it out with that experiment. So y'all ain't gonna get vaccinated. I see. So it's in the food now. Bill Gates buying up all this land all over, agricultural land. So just by eating lettuce, certain lettuce, you're vaccinated. Apples, you're vaccinated. So it's been highly weaponized now. So it's critical. It's important that we mine our plate, mine our plate. And, on that note, I got to give thanks to Michelle Obama for changing the USDA, food and nutrition guideline from the pyramid to my plate, my plate. So, and it's interesting, because this is what I've been teaching ever since 1969, and my company landed in Harlem in 1979, incorporated sun-fired foods. And this is what we're teaching, the sun-fired energy of plant foods, the electromagnetic energy of food, and how to get, your body to live on optimal health. So seeing that, being promoted by the government, by the authorities, as the My Plate concept, where they took away the whole concept of pushing a whole lot of meat and starch, complex carbohydrate, to make your plate now 50% fruits and vegetables, 50% grains and protein. So they don't even mention starch anymore, thanks to Michelle Obama. It's grains. If you must eat starch, grains are the best shot. And protein, you have an option now. You can be a vegan. You don't have to eat variety of animal proteins to get, your protein needs satisfied. So, sharing this information the way I'm able to share it now with my background as an educator. I have a master's in linguistics, went to Cal State Fullerton, studied with the master of Ebonics, Ernie Smith, Sweet Ernie, and we even got to the point where we sued the U.S. the U.S. Education Department and the California Board of Education to get bilingual education for our kids, our youths, going into these public schools and being taught as if they speak standard American English at home. So that's a whole nother conversation. We may have to do a show just on that, Ebonics and the whole thing of speaking our language, African languages, using English words or French words or Portuguese word. And it's a whole nother flavor. It's a whole nother level of communication, going back to the old days when we had to speak in tongues, so they don't understand where we coming from and what our plot is. So happy to be here, happy to be sharing with this generation now, and the lively and move forward moving generation, that your market is serving. You know, you gotta watch your plate. We got to watch our plate.
Indeed, indeed, man. You dropped so many gems. I gotta speak on Garvey, man. Shout out to Garvey. He's still um inspiring people. Like you say, your parents was Garveyites. The first conversation I ever had about Marcus Garvey was from my grandmother. So, because
Yeah.
her mother and father was in the Garvey movement, she went to some of the parades and events or whatever. So
Mhm.
that had planted a seed in me. So I'm in Ghana now. So you never
Yeah,
know how far it's gonna go. So
that's
that's
right.
very, very beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing that history about Panama because I didn't know all of that. So I got to go back and do my research on that for sure. That's so dope, man.